Today's passage is from the book of Genesis, chapter 27, verses 1 through 40. Genesis 27, 1 through 40. When Isaac was old, and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called for Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." "Here I am," he answered. Isaac said, "I am now an old man, and don't know the day of my death. Now then, get your weapons, your quiver and bow, and go out to the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare me the kind of tasty food I like, and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my blessing before I die." Now Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau left for the open country to hunt game, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "Look, I overheard your father saying to your brother Esau, 'Bring me some game and prepare some tasty food to eat, so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die. Now, my son, listen carefully to what I tell you. Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats, so I can prepare tasty food for your father, just the way he likes it. Then take to your father to eat, so that he may give you his blessing before he dies." Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, "But my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a man with smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him, and he would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing." His mother said to him, "My son, let the curse fall on me. Just do what I say. Go and get them for me." So he went out and got them and brought them to his mother, and she prepared some tasty food, just the way his father liked it. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her older son, which she had in the house, and put them on her younger son Jacob. She also covered his hands and the smooth parts of his neck with goat skin. Then she handed her son Jacob the tasty food and the bread she had made. He went to his father and said, "My father." "Yes, my son," he answered. "Who is it?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of the game, so that you may give me your blessing." Isaac asked his son, "How did you find it so quick, my son?" "The Lord your God gave me success," he replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come near so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not." Jacob went close to his father, who touched him and said, "The voice is of Jacob, but the hands are of Esau." He did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau. So he blessed him. "Are you really my son Esau?" he asked. "I am," he replied. Then he said, "My son, bring me some of your game to eat, so that I may give you my blessing." Jacob brought it to him, and he ate. And he brought him some wine, and he drank. His father Isaac said to him, "Come here, my son, and kiss me." So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him and said, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of the field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you of heaven's dew and of earth's riches, an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you, and people bow down to you. Be Lord over your brother, and may your sons and your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed." After Isaac finished blessing him, and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, when his brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, "My father, sit up and eat some of the game, so that you may give me your blessing." His father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" "I'm your son," he answered, "your firstborn, Esau." Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate just before you came, and I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed." When Esau heard his father's word, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry, and said to his father, "Bless me too, my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? He has deceived me these 2 times. He took my birthright, and now he has taken my blessing." Then he asked, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, I have made him lord over you and made all his relatives and his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son? Esau said to his father, do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father. Esau wept aloud. His father Isaac answered him, your dwelling will be away from the earth's riches, and away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw off his yoke from around your neck. Today we're going to continue our look at the life of Jacob. Now, last week we saw how Jacob bought his brother's birthright for one meal. Today's story is not like that. That story, Jacob was not being a very good brother, but I tend to lay most of the blame on Esau because he despised his birthright. But in today's passage, Jacob is going to pull a dirty and outright cruel trick on his brother and his father. The story begins, Isaac is an old man. At this point, his sons are about 40 years old, so Isaac was nearly 100 years old. By the way, it's worth recognizing that what this story records is not a childish trick. These are adults dealing with serious matters. Well, Isaac realized he had lived a full life, and he couldn't expect too much more out of life. He wasn't sure how long he had. So he called Esau, his son, to him to give him his blessing. Right there, we notice that something might be a little off. The father's last blessing was a big deal, and it was generally a public ceremony. But Isaac called Esau to him in private. Suggests maybe he recognized what he was about to do wasn't really right. He shouldn't let other people see it. Oh. He called Esau to him, and this blessing was a big deal. People at that time took it very seriously. A father's final blessing was thought to affect a man's life and the life of his children for generations to come. This wasn't just a nice speech from an elderly man. This was a promise of what the future held. And Jacob wasn't there. Isaac intended to give all of his blessing to just one child. At that time, for a father to bless one son and leave the other out was unheard of. That's what we see Isaac doing in this passage. The book of James, chapter 2 says, my brothers, as believers in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ, don't show favoritism. Now, James was talking about how we act in the church, that we should not favor one person over another. Now, one person might come in wearing a tailored suit, a Rolex watch, and somehow always look like James Bond posing for GQ magazine. Someone else might come in with a t-shirt and ripped jeans, and they're not ripped because he bought them that way. One person might have a weekly tithe that'll keep the lights on for the entire year, and another person might only be able to put a couple dollars in the plate. James tells us not to treat those two people differently. Because favoritism breeds resentment and contempt. When we show favoritism, then we breed resentment. Those who are not favored resent those who are. Think if God values everyone equally, why is that person treated better than me? And favoritism creates resentment. And favoritism creates contempt in those who are favored. That if we treat one person better because of their earthly status, because of how much money they have, or their job, or their position in life, then that person will begin to have contempt for those who are not favored. If we favor one person over another, we are showing contempt for those who are not favored, and those who are receiving that favor will come to have contempt for other people. And the end result is that the church, a place that says that God is love, becomes a breeding ground for hatred and anger. Favoritism breeds resentment and contempt. And if that's true in the church family, how much more true is it in a biological family? Even the unbelieving world knows that the home should be a place of unconditional love. Yet, Isaac was willing to give all his blessing to just one child. He continually showed favoritism. And that favoritism bred contempt and resentment in Jacob. Jacob began to resent his father. After years of favoring Esau, Jacob resented Isaac. He resented him to the point that he was willing to play this trick on him, to lie to his elderly, handicapped father. Jacob was even willing to invoke the name of the Lord to trick his father. And this favoritism bred contempt for Esau. Jacob held his brother in contempt. Why should Esau get this blessing? He just squander it like he squanders everything else. Esau's the kind of person who would sell a birthright worth millions of dollars for one bowl of soup. Why should someone like that get a blessing? And Jacob came to have contempt for his brother. And I suppose all that's really just set up for today's passage. This favoritism that Isaac had been showing created resentment and contempt in the family. And yet Isaac just keeps going. He called his son Esau, and only Esau, in to receive a blessing. However, Isaac's wife Rebekah overheard this. And Rebekah also played favorites with the kids, but she favored Jacob. So when Esau went out to go hunting for some food, she called Jacob over. She slaughtered some goats from the herd. She dressed up Jacob in Esau's clothes and put furs around his skin and had him go in and pretend to be Esau to steal this blessing. As I said, this is just a rotten thing to do. This isn't like buying the birthright. This is just flat out stealing a blessing and lying to Jacob's own father. The resentment and contempt had built up to the point in Jacob's life that he doesn't see anything wrong with this. At one point he does sort of object to his mother about this idea, but his concern seems to be that he doesn't want to get caught, not that he feels remorse for doing this to his father and his brother. This also was a sign of just a complete lack of faith on the part of Rebekah and Jacob. They did not trust in God's blessing. They were not willing to wait for the Lord. They wanted to steal a blessing for themselves. And it worked. This ruse is successful. Jacob went in, Isaac was fooled, and he gave a blessing to Jacob. It's worth noting again, we see this extreme favoritism that Isaac did not reserve any extra blessing for his other son. A little while later, Esau comes back with the food and the truth comes out. They realize what Jacob has done, and Esau gets, I guess, this kind of booby prize of a blessing that he will live away from the riches of the earth, but one day he will throw off the yoke of his brother. And I want to say at this point that it seems like Jacob is getting away with this. Jacob's pulled some pretty rotten tricks here, and in the short run, nothing bad is happening to him. I don't want to leave you with that impression. Next time I'm going to talk about how Jacob's tricks caught up with him. But that's not where I want to focus today. For the rest of today's sermon, I want to talk about an issue I've often heard people bring up about this passage. The most common issue I've heard people say about this passage is, why didn't Isaac call for a do-over? He gave his blessing, he was wrong, why doesn't he just say, I was tricked, I take it back, do-over, last one doesn't count? I mean, that seems reasonable, but it never entered Isaac's mind. There was no mention in this passage that Isaac could somehow take back this blessing. I think this gets at a central theme that we see throughout the Bible. That is, to put it simply, our words matter. What we say matters. This is a common theme throughout the Bible. Past week I found more than 100 verses about the importance of how we use our words. I want to be clear here, I am not exaggerating, I'm not rounding up. I literally found more than 100 times in the Bible that it talks about the importance of using our words. I think the best summation of this is found in the book of James, where James wrote, take ships as an example. Although they are large and driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot wants to go. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but makes great boasts. Our words set the course for our lives. We've all heard the old saying, actions speak louder than words. That's true, but our actions tend to follow our words. For better or worse, our words, how we choose to speak, has a profound effect on our lives. So, why couldn't Isaac take this blessing back? He said it, he was tricked. Why couldn't he say, I just take it back? To explain this, I want to use a visual aid. And I think I wrote about this in a newsletter a few months ago, so if you know how this ends, don't spoil it for anybody else. I'm going to need a little bit of help here. So I'm going to ask Jonah and Tristan and Faith to come on up here. Thank you guys for volunteering. I love it when people volunteer and I haven't told them what they're going to do yet. It does involve toothpaste. You don't like to brush teeth, Jonah?
I feel scared.
You feel scared? I told you that's a good response. So, we're going to have a little race here. In just a moment, I'm going to put 20 seconds up on the clock. And in 20 seconds, I want you guys to see how much toothpaste you get out of the tube and into the cup. So the race is who can get the most toothpaste in the cup. Hey, leave it down there. All right. Okay, you guys ready? Remember, the honor of your family is at stake here. And go. In the cup.
Don't give up. Keep going.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
it's
keeps
restarting. Oh, no.
Stop.
And stop.
it just keeps going to 16.
Technical problems. Go ahead. One. I don't know who. Oh, Jonah. I don't know who won this. I'm going to declare Faith the winner because I feel like it. Stay here a sec. Stay here a sec. I have one more race for you. Okay, you ready? Give me apparently 4 seconds because that's all the clock's doing. I want you to see how much toothpaste you can put back in the tube. Go.
Thank you. No.
Jonah's the only one trying.
All right, stop. I think Jonah won that one. All right. Good job. Okay, thank you guys. You can have a seat. I appreciate your help.
And there's your prize.
This. Okay, you may have noticed that the second race was a little more difficult than the first one. It's easy to get toothpaste out of a tube. It's next to impossible to put it back in. Same is true for our words. It's easy to put our words out there. Once they're spoken, it's essentially impossible to actually take them back. This is one of the reasons the Bible spends so much time talking about the importance of our words. Because once a word is spoken, we can't ever really take it back. Isaac gave this false blessing, but whether he meant it or not, it was done. It was spoken, and he couldn't take his words back. And so, I'd like to finish off today's sermon by talking about 4 ways that we can use our words wisely. First, start with honesty. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 25 says, "Therefore, having put away falsehood, let each of you speak the truth." If we're going to use our words wisely, we need to start with honesty. Okay, honestly, I feel a little silly that I have to say that. We should know the importance of honesty, yet I recognize it needs to be said. Dishonesty is rampant in our society. A recent study found that 91% of people admit they regularly lie about things they consider to be trivial. Between 70 to 80% of people said they regularly lie to their parents, lie to their friends, lie to their siblings, and lie to their spouses. Dishonesty is a part of our society. If we are going to live as Christians, then we need to be different. We need to start with that honesty. Because if we are as dishonest as the world around us, why will people think that we are being honest when it comes to the truth of Christ? If we are going to use our words wisely, if we are going to steer the course of our lives well, we start with honesty. And if you have not been living honestly, start now. Second, do not speak carelessly. Matthew chapter 12, Jesus said, I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give an account for every careless word that they speak. We live in a world filled with mindless chatter. I think this has gotten a lot worse since the creation of social media. We now have Facebook. And so now our mindless chatter is out there. I sometimes wonder if people recognize that Facebook is still the internet. That if we put something on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat, it is online forever. I remember a few years ago there was this trend on Facebook where people would take a picture of a legal document saying that Facebook was not allowed to use their pictures or words for any other purpose. And they thought that would protect their privacy. Just so you know, that's not how laws work. If we post anything on Facebook or any other social media, that image belongs to the company forever. Idle chatter has always been a danger to society, but there was once a time when people might eventually forget the silly things that we said. Now, everything we say can be immortalized online basically until the end of time. Jesus warns us against speaking carelessly. Third, do not make promises lightly. In chapter 5 of Matthew, in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said, but I tell you, do not swear, either by heaven, which is God's throne, or by earth, which is his footstool. Let your yes be yes, and your no be no. Anything more than that is from the evil one. I think Jesus' underlying point here is that we should not be the kind of people that need to say, I promise. If someone speaks idly, someone speaks carelessly, or if someone is dishonest, then when they are speaking truthfully, they need to make a big production out of it. They need to say, I promise. They need to take an oath so that people will know they're being honest. If we are not dishonest, if we are not careless with our words, then everything we say should have the force of a promise. Because everything we say is true. We should be the kind of people who do not need to promise. Because people can trust what we say. And so Jesus told us not to make promises lightly. Fourth and finally, when our words build others up, we are built up. Book of Ephesians, Paul wrote, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as good for building up. When we build others up, we are built up ourselves. When we encourage others, we are encouraged. Our words, for better or worse, steer the course of our lives. And so, when we give encouragement, we are encouraged. When we speak positively to others, our view of the world becomes more positive. Once a word is spoken, it can never really be taken back. Isaac and Esau experienced that in a negative sense. They spoke what they did not want and could not take it back. But we can also experience that in a positive sense. Even if I'm not in a particularly good mood, if I speak positively, that positive word is still out there. It will have an effect on the world around me. It will have an effect on my own heart. And once it's spoken, it doesn't ever come back. Our words matter. They set the course of our lives, and once something has been spoken, it can't ever really be taken back. So use our words wisely. Do not speak carelessly. Start with honesty. Do not make promises lightly. And remember that when we build others up, we are built up as well. In a moment, we're going to stand for our invitation. And as we stand to sing, if your words have been leading you the wrong way in life, if you've let dishonesty or careless speech or negativity control the course of your life, and you'd like to see a change, if you'd like to make a new commitment to the Lord, if you need to make your first commitment to God, you have an opportunity today. I ask you'll stand with me now for invitation hymn, which is Have Thine Own Way, number 371, and we'll sing just the first verse.